2025 is shaping up to be a make it or break it year for Tesla. This year will most likely determine if Tesla continues to grow at an insane rate, far outpacing most other companies on the stock market, or if the cracks start to show. And the fact of the matter is, Tesla has a major problem, and that is Elon Musk. The thing is, that major problem, Elon Musk, is also Tesla's greatest asset. And this year will most likely determine which side of the coin Elon Musk ends up on. Now in this video, I want to dive deep into Tesla as a company as well as a stock. Is its value justified or is it way overhyped? I also want to cover Elon Musk and whether he will be an asset or a liability to the company in 2025. And I want to talk about some of the future projects that Tesla says it's working on that are holding the value of the stock so high, because some of these projects literally determine whether the valuation for Tesla and its accompanying stock is justified or whether it is likely to face a massive crash in the future. So with that said, as always, my name is Derek and I got my degree in finance, so you don't have to. Let's get right into it. Now, I think a good place to start is to look at Tesla's valuation from a traditional standpoint. Now, in order to do so, I think we first need to answer the question, is Tesla an automobile manufacturer or is Tesla a tech company? Now, there are arguments for both sides. People who would say that Tesla is an auto manufacturer would point to the fact that Tesla makes most of its money from selling vehicles. And those that instead view Tesla as a tech company would argue that no, Tesla's value comes more from the fact that it owns some of the best software in the world. And some of its future projects will further push it into the tech territory. Things like robo-taxis and actual personal robots, as well as the myriad of softwares that it sells and it licenses, mostly in the fast charging and self-driving areas. Now, for me, I try to see things as objectively as possible. And the real answer is probably somewhere in the middle. Yes, on one side of the coin, Tesla makes most of its money from selling vehicles. This would put it similarly to Ford or Honda or Toyota. But at the same time, you could argue that, for example, Apple is not really a phone company, even though it sells mostly phones. And that is because those phones that it sells, they're not phones. They are highly advanced computers that we put in our pockets every day. And when it comes to Tesla, yes, it does sell mostly vehicles. But in reality, those vehicles are probably much closer to computers on wheels than they are the traditional car. So when we look at it like this, we can try our best to apply some traditional ways at valuing Tesla. So let's do just that. Now, while none of these metrics are perfect, it does help highlight how extremely highly valued Tesla is as a company for investors. So first, the tried and tested PE ratio, or price to earnings ratio, which basically shows how much investors are willing to pay for $1 of earnings. And I'm going to use both Ford and Apple as well as the industry averages to highlight how highly valued Tesla is. So for example, Apple's PE ratio is 40. And in contrast, Ford's PE ratio is around 11. Now, this shows you how much more valuable investors see a dollar's worth of earnings for a tech company as opposed to a mature company like Ford. Now, the reason for this is mostly because of growth. Things in the tech world tend to grow fast, and they tend to be considered growth companies, where companies like Ford or completely random, but like Coca-Cola, are more mature with less growth in front of them. So in reality, a high PE ratio for a tech company more so has to do with its growth. And there is another metric that we'll talk about here in a second that better shows this. But regardless, Apple's PE ratio is 40, Ford's is 11, and Tesla's is 112. That means for every $1 of earnings, investors are willing to pay $112 for it. Now, this is both higher than Ford and Apple, which is the most valuable company in the world, which tells us this: investors think that Tesla has more or higher growth prospects than Apple. Thus, they are willing to pay more for the current earnings because they are assuming or presuming that in the future, these earnings will increase dramatically. But we can look at this further on an industry basis. The PE ratio for the automobile manufacturer industry, when we only look at legacy manufacturers, is about 14. And the PE ratio for the tech sector, on average, is 38, which again shows us that Tesla is much higher valued than not just an automobile manufacturer, but as a tech company. And it could be said that its growth prospects are even higher valued than those of Apple. Now, I did say that the P ratio is probably not the best way to look at a growth company because it excludes a very important factor, and that is potential growth. Yet, there is another ratio that takes this into account, and that is the PEG ratio, which is price over earnings to growth. This does take into account forecasted growth for the company. And when we look at Tesla, Apple, and Ford, as well as the industries under this lens, the same picture is still painted. Tesla is valued at a much higher rate than its competition in either sector. Apple's PEG ratio is around 2.23. Ford's PE ratio is around 1.87. And Tesla's PEG ratio? Over 15. That is about 7 times higher than either Apple or Ford. And just to put this into perspective, traditionally, an undervalued company would have a PEG ratio of less than 1. Anything above 1 warrants suspicion that it might be overvalued. And of course, the industry averages are even less. For the automobile industry, it's about 0.29. And for the tech industry, it's about 1.39. So Tesla, again, is significantly valued more than the competition, and even when we compare it to the industries as a whole. So, from a purely traditional standpoint, Tesla is overvalued. With that said, as someone who loves numbers, numbers don't always paint the full picture. And that's why this is where we need to start talking about both the potential future growth prospects for Tesla as well as its leader, Elon Musk. Now, let's talk about the potential growth drivers first. The main one is FSD, which is full self-driving. If Tesla is able to perfect this technology, as well as potentially license it to other companies, this alone is estimated to generate somewhere upwards of $3 billion every single year. That alone is massive and rivals Tesla's main revenue driver, which is the sales of cars, which is very important for Tesla. Because if we look at the most recent early Q4 data, you'll notice that Tesla, for the first time in its history, had a yearly sales decline. Not only that, but it under-delivered the forecasted amount of vehicle deliveries for Q4 of 2024. What does this tell us? Well, this tells us that the industry as a whole is starting to mature. For the last decade, Tesla has held basically a monopoly over the EV sector. But now, with the fact that governments all around the world are pushing to electrify our transportation sector, you have other companies that either are willing to compete, like Hyundai, who has basically gone full in on electric vehicles, or those who are forced to compete, like Toyota or Honda. Regardless, these legacy manufacturers have the ability to innovate, and they know how to make cars. And because of this, you are seeing more competition. Not just competition, but good competition. And that's not to include other startups like Rivian and Lucid who are going to put pressure on Tesla. So while full self-driving is absolutely a plus for Tesla, if it can be perfected, it is also almost a requirement to counter the almost guaranteed decreasing in sales figures in the future as more and more manufacturers produce high-quality electric vehicles. Now, another area for growth is the robotaxi, as well as full-on robotics. Tesla recently highlighted both its robotaxi as well as its personal robot, both of which right now are concepts, but if I had to guess, the robotaxi is probably closer to becoming a reality than the full-on Tesla robot. In fact, there are other companies like Waymo that already are doing fully autonomous taxis, and Tesla wants a piece of that pie. In fact, they have projected that their robotaxi will probably be ready sometime this year in 2025. Now, while it's probably too early to make a good guess on how much revenue this business model will generate for Tesla, it's probably going to be significant, not only because Tesla can run its own taxi service, but it can also sell its vehicles to Uber and Lyft and individuals who want to run a taxi business autonomously. And when it comes to Tesla stock, this is one of the reasons why it's so highly valued. It's not necessarily because of its overvalued traditional metrics, it is because investors in Tesla put a lot of faith and a lot of substance to the fact that Tesla has some very promising future projects in the tank. With that said, it's still yet to be seen if these future projects will ever actually become a reality. And this is where we start to talk about Elon Musk, Tesla's leader, which is the other major reason, in my opinion, that Tesla is valued so highly. Elon Musk is not only a charismatic and very intelligent leader, but he is an excellent hype man. He knows how to hype up investors, and he knows how to make ideas sound amazing. Whether that be the Cybertruck, whether that be the supposed $25,000 Tesla, which we have yet to see, whether that be the Tesla Roadster, or the Robotaxi, or the full-on Tesla robot, Elon Musk has the ability that every great leader has turned up to 11, and that is to invigorate the investor base. With that said, I said that Elon Musk, in my opinion, is actually a problem, not just an asset. And the reason for that is because he has been able to hype up Tesla so much, you now end up with a stock that is traditionally overvalued by an insane amount, which means that investors who are new to Tesla, or just investors who are investing for the retirement, because newsflash, if you invest in an ETF and I invest in an ETF, we are involuntarily investing in Tesla whether we want to or not. And some might even argue that all he cares about is the stock price. It's become very painfully obvious that the current valuation of Tesla as a market cap and as a stock hinges entirely on future projects that have yet to even begin production, or projects like full self-driving, which has been delayed and delayed and delayed. And yes, it has improved massively, but we are talking at 5+ years, if not more, when it comes to project delays for full self-driving, for the Tesla Roadster, which still isn't here, for the $25,000 Tesla, which still isn't here, and for the Cybertruck, which not only took many years beyond when it was supposed to be released, but it was released at almost double the initial price that Elon Musk got on stage and said it would cost. But just like Elon Musk is a problem for Tesla and especially its valuation, he's also an asset. He is great at invigorating and keeping Tesla at the forefront of the news cycle, and he also made a calculated move to support and become close to the new president, Donald Trump. Now, some have projected that this will probably lead to favorable conditions for Tesla or unfavorable conditions for its competition, like the elimination of the EV tax credit. With that said, even this is a double-edged sword because Elon Musk has undoubtedly alienated some of his major customer base, which, for the most part, when it comes to electric vehicles, lean left. So, in my opinion, because of this duality of Elon Musk as a major asset for Tesla, but also a serious problem, in my opinion, Tesla is, by all intents and purposes, an overvalued company at this point. A lot of its value hinges on things that are completely unproven. With that said, there is a famous saying when it comes to the stock market, and that is that the market can remain irrational far longer than I or you can remain solvent. So just because I do think that traditionally Tesla is overvalued, I am in no shape, way, or form betting against it, and I will not in any way, shape, or form be opening a short position against Tesla because I think that would probably be a fool's errand. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope it gave you some perspective into Tesla as a company. If you like personal finance, world economics, and investing broken down simply, you are in the right place, so I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, take care.